This week, Ben and I are going to talk about some export numbers along with the NOPA report on the oilseed front, and then have some harvest and wheat planting updates as well. Hello and welcome to the weekly commodity market update. I'm Brownfield's Will Robinson, joined as always by the University of Missouri's Ben Brown. Ben, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning, Will?
Doing all right. It's an eventful time. We're, right in the thick of harvest and, really across the country at this point. And, college football's in full swing. So, two for two on those fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. About halfway through the season or just over halfway. I can't remember, but yeah, it's in the thick of it. We're starting to see which teams are starting to break away from others, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, getting some good college football in some of our listening areas. Looking at Indiana and Iowa State. Hopefully, they continue their runs and some impressive stuff there. But Ben, looking, maybe at some impressive things, it didn't really come through in the markets. So I'm going to give a quick rundown on the week's change in prices real fast. Looking at that December corn contract up 1 cent at 4.09. Looking at November soybeans down 15 cents at $9.81. Looking at soybean oil on a cents per pound basis for December up 0.49 cents at 42.39. Soybean meal on the short ton for December up $2.80 at 318.30. That 2024 December wheat crop down 13 cents at 572. December cotton up 1.17 cents at 72.2 cents. Then that West Texas Intermediate crude oil contract down $3.34 at $70 even per barrel. So, Ben, pretty much sideways trading, but little gains, little losses, all spotted around the board. Really kind of a quiet week. What's your takeaway looking at the market movement?
Yeah, it was kind of a quiet news week in some regards. We did have some things that came out that I think did provide a little bit of support to the market. I think the crop that is maybe causing me a little bit of conundrum. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I'm confused by it in some regards is the wheat market. And the wheat market's always, a very complex market, just given how many countries around the world are harvesting and planting wheat all at the same time. But certainly the headlines would suggest that, global supplies of wheat are threatened, and that we're going to see opportunities for a little bit higher wheat prices, or at least, even if they don't move higher, maybe those downside risks are muted. And the fact that we fell double digits in the wheat market on the week, given that we continue to see Russia limit the export supplies of wheat, we're seeing dryness in the U.S. Southern Plains, in our primary winter wheat growing area. It just really leads me to question why we're seeing so much softness in that winter wheat market here as of late.
Well, Ben, just looking around at the different things going on, I guess, just kind of taking off where you left there, jumping on some winter wheat planting. We're seeing, I guess, a slower planting cycle here in the U.S. on the wheat front as compared to normal. Not too far behind, about 4% year over year. But Ben, talking about the complexity of the wheat picture, looking at all the moving parts across the globe, what do wheat growers need to be paying attention to at this time, working through planting season in the U.S. while it's being harvested elsewhere?
Yeah, great questions. So you are right. Winter wheat planting as of this past Sunday, according to USDA, was 73% complete. That compares to about 77% on average. Given how quickly harvest has gone, and that we're running, the fastest soybean harvest we've ever had not ever, but in the last 5 years, the corn pace is the second fastest on record, and so. Would probably lead me to believe that we'd see a little bit faster winter wheat planting. The fact that that's a little bit slower than normal is, I think, really representative of this dryness that we're seeing across the region. 52% of the winter wheat area is under, some form of drought. And so I sit here and say, is this people waiting to see if we can get some moisture before starting to put in a wheat crop? And there is low correlation between winter wheat conditions in the fall and then the yield in the spring. We've talked about this, I think, every year on the program about how you can't really draw a whole lot of conclusions from the winter wheat numbers in the fall, or the conditions in the fall, to the yield in the spring. However, to your question about what should producers be watching, this acreage number, I think, is something really worth watching. If we really drop winter wheat acreage here in this fall due to dryness, I continue to think that becomes a little bit of a bullish story for us as we move throughout the year. So.
Ben, just on your picture or your point about the wheat outlook and kind of that condition, how it looks going in versus how it comes out. I think there's an old joke, kind of an adage about a Frenchman, American, and an Irishman, drinking a drink or not based on there being a fly in it. And I think wheat is kind of the Irishman. It doesn't really care. He just wants everything he can get. But looking, I guess, elsewhere across the harvest sector of the U.S. We're well above pacing, like you mentioned. What's that really causing to the picture right now when we're looking at a lot of these producers on, yeah, all this is coming out, but the market balance, we're seeing still depressed prices. We're seeing prices that, struggled to really move higher. Corn's just hanging on a little bit over $4. So, I'd imagine that's not a very, gunning sector to look or gunning area to look at when farmers are wanting to market at these prices because there's not too much of a profit margin if not a loss. So what's really going on? What picture are you seeing develop when it comes to, yeah, everything's getting out, but where's it going?
Well, this is a story that I think is really important across the Midwest. I've heard a lot of producers ask about, why is my elevator not taking grain at harvest, or why are they not open during their extended hours? Things like that, right? Those are the questions I'm getting, and there is no logistical issues per se. We don't see exporters really backing off from taking our product. We're able to move product even though it's maybe at a little bit of higher cost than what we're used to. But I think it comes down to how much grain we had in storage from last year as this harvest really started to get rolling, and then how much product we have currently that's trying to find its way into the market. Uh, you know, Somebody's got to absorb that risk of holding the product. And I keep talking about this, but if you deliver to the elevator and you don't sell and you're just storing, yes, the elevator is making money on your storage cost. But they're also assuming all that risk of the storage and the mechanical damage and shrinkage of that product. And so, I keep asking people keep saying my elevator's closed and not taking in grain. And I usually respond with the question, are they not taking any grain, or are they just taking, are they only taking grain as long as you agree to sell it today? And most of the time they'll say, yeah, we can deliver if we sell today. And that just signals to me that elevators are wanting to move product. They're not wanting to hold that grain. They've filled their storage up. You hit it on the head. Producers aren't wanting to sell at these lower prices. And so as a result, we've got to find ways to store that on farm. Internally, I know this doesn't help today, but internally, I want to remind people that this is part of the reason why we incentivize and encourage grain marketing plans early in the growing season, right? Through forward contracts, there was opportunities to go ahead and price that product at higher prices and have a place for it at harvest. And again, we can't do anything about that now, but this is just a reminder of where that comes into play in the broader scheme of marketing.
Maybe an episode in the future on the different risk management strategies to look forward to in the next cycle, Ben. But looking elsewhere here, you mentioned some of the movement of the grains, some of the and oilseeds into the export market, and I guess for this time of year, it's staying relatively supportive, but it's not really helping. It seems directly or instantly on the price front. So how long of a lag do you see there, and how big of a movement does there need to be maybe to pick up some of that pacing on the actual pricing front?
Well, so lately I've been getting asked about this large sale to Mexico. So last Wednesday, we saw Mexico come into the market and have a flash sale of U.S. corn for the current marketing year of above 60 million bushels. Then they followed that up with some smaller sales. That 60 million bushels certainly is large. It's purchases that we like to see. I'll remind folks that Mexico was a big reason why our corn exports were as large as they were last year. They were the top buyer and came in and bought a lot of corn. We're going to need them to buy a lot of corn again this year, given how much corn we have to move and how much product there is. They've got some dryness in their prime growing region that's going to allow them, I think, to come into the market and be supportive of our corn export picture. So Large story short is we expect this, right? This is something that needs to happen. We expect it to happen. The timing is always a little bit, of question, but certainly it makes sense. What we're looking for though is corn buys from other countries that we don't expect, right? That's what's really going to rally this market. I'll simply say I'm not trying to discount this sale to Mexico, only to say that these are the things that we need to happen and that we expect to happen for corn prices to find some support. That sets the stage for if we do see some sales to other countries, it creates a little bit of a bullish surprise to the upside.
Yeah, so basically the table's being set, but now we just need something to kind of push it over the hump and
Sure.
really push through prices. Ben, kind of winding down here, looking at one more report that we got this past week. We got a pretty large NOPA report, the National Oilseed Processors Association, moving through and crushing quite a bit of soybeans. What is this really signaling to you as we see these very large crush numbers moving forward?
Sure. So just to set the stage here, 177.3 million bushels of soybeans is what the National Oilseed Processors Association reported for the month of September. That was up from 7 million, or that was up 7 million bushels from the pre-report expectation, which is a large surprise to the upside. It also set a record for the month of September. This was a strong report. I always say that a lot of times one report does not change the sentiment of the market. It usually takes a couple to set a trend to get the at least the direction changed in the market. However, I would say that when this NOPA report was released last Tuesday, that it was one of those reports that provided a little bit of support to the market. We were trading pretty bearish throughout the morning until this hit, and then that kind of helped us rally a little bit. So again, very solid demand, and certainly something that we expect to see happening. It's always reassuring when these things happen, but we're going to need to see multiple of these and maybe even some support in other areas of the market, either weaker production in South America or very strong exports out of the United States. Probably a combination of both, because those two are kind of related to really get the soybean market to rally higher. We've just got a lot of soybeans in the global picture that's really going to put a lid on our markets as we move our way through the spring.
All right, Ben. Well, a bit of a quiet week this past week. Looking forward, what should farmers and ranchers be paying attention to that could move the markets?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm interested to see where the export sales report is on this Thursday. The reason I say I'm interested is because we had so many flash sales last week, especially on the corn side, to a lot of destinations, including unknown, which a lot of people get upset that they report unknown, but that's truly what they are, unknown destinations. And so I'll be interested to see, do we see a bullish surprise in the corn export sales report this Thursday? Outside of that, we get a cattle on feed report for the month of September, well, as of October 1st, and then marketings and placements during September this Friday. So we'll be looking at that. I know our friends in the livestock market space will be interested in that too. For us, it comes down to feed use, but certainly those are kind of the ones I'm looking for this week.
All right, Ben, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have your knowledge and information on the program. Viewers and listeners, if you'd like to learn more about us and what we do, check us out at brownfieldagnews.com. As Ben alluded to, you can also find our sister program there, the weekly livestock market update as well. Ben, thanks again. I'm Will Robinson on Brownfield.